Right? And so this is the idea of what we want to do is, man, we want to get this F&A. The F&A is going to allow us to do everything out of this, okay? All right. You set? All right. So as we get to the kitchen table, let's just say you just be ready to just introduce us, okay? All right. So now, what has Mari told you about this so far?
She just said she needs some training.
Some training and stuff like that to help her up with it. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Well, the reason why I'm here is that Mari is training to be a representative with our company, and she's not yet licensed. Okay, our company right now is in a 3 to 5 year expansion phase, and she's one of our new associates, right? But really, all we're going to do today is show you what it is that we do. I don't know if you'll see anything that interests you or anything you think you can benefit from, but if so, we'll talk more about that, okay? Usually what happens when we sit down with the family is that they'll respond in one of several ways. You know, that they like what we do, but maybe they're already taken care of, or for whatever reason the timing isn't right, but they might know others that can benefit from what we do, and they're happy to refer them to us, or more importantly, Mari, as we're trying to get her client base going, right? Or secondly, they find that we are able to help them. And at that point, we'll prepare a complimentary financial needs analysis for them, and we'll talk about offering some solutions for them, right? Or thirdly, whether they become clients or not, the clients are looking to make extra income, or possibly even a career change, we'll talk to them about representing us, maybe even like on a part-time basis, okay? What we do is we teach families about financial planning. The concepts we talk about are not new. In fact, they're concepts that the wealthy have practiced in America for decades, right? Our tool that we use to help a family become properly protected, debt-free, and financially independent is our financial needs analysis, okay? Now, typically, most people that do a service like this, they charge. We do this for free, okay? We don't charge families for this, right? So let me show you what we got here, and this is kind of how it all works here, okay? What we have here, this is an actual one that we did for a family in the Fresno area. Now, obviously, we changed the name and contact information because everything is confidential, okay? The financial needs analysis are also customized. They're tailored to the family's needs because every family is different. You know, some have 2 kids, some have 5 kids, some have no kids. And then lastly, like I mentioned before, to have something like this put together, financial planners will charge anywhere from a few $100s to as much as a few $1,000s just to have a program put together. And we don't feel that's in the family's best interest, so we do these complimentary, okay? What it looks at, the financial needs analysis, it looks at a few areas, but what it's going to start off with, it's going to show the family a picture of their financial position. What this basically does is it kind of gives them an idea of the cash flow, of what's coming in, but more importantly, where does it go, right? So like, for example, like this family, we were able to show them exactly how much income they made, which they already knew that. More importantly, where was every dollar going? For example, what percentage is going to insurance, savings, debt, taxes, living expenses like entertainment, food, stuff like that. And then a chart illustrating all of the dollar areas so that they can identify if there's any problematic areas as well. And if there are, then we look at solutions on how we can start to address those issues for them, okay? Then, next, what we'll do is we're also going to be able to show the family their net worth, which is pretty awesome. I think everybody should know this, right? But their net worth, basically what that is, it's any assets they've accumulated so far in life. So, for example, like if they have any retirement assets, if they have a if they have a home with the value of the home, we're able to show them all of that stuff. And then their liabilities, everything that they still owe on. For example, if they have any balances on if they have a balance on their home, if they have any balances on credit cards, auto loans, stuff like that, we'll total all of that up. When you take the assets and you subtract the liabilities, then that shows the family their net worth, okay? Now, it's not uncommon for a lot of families today, especially younger families, to be in the negative still, because they haven't had enough time to accumulate assets and they still owe a lot on the things that they're purchasing, right? So, but to know your net worth is important, right? The next thing that we'll look at, the next part of our program, is the retirement part of our program. Very, very important part for families. I actually really enjoy this part of our program because it's very interactive for them. For example, one of the first questions we ask a family is, at what age would they like to retire? This family said age 67, because that's their Social Security age, okay? The next question we ask them is, if they were to retire today, and assuming that their home was paid for, and their children were grown and moved on, how much would they need to live off of every month if they retired today? Well, they make about $6,200 a month right now. They said that if they didn't have their house payment and not too much debt and the kids would move on, they said, well, we could probably live off of about $4,900 a month, which is about 80% of their income. The problem is they're not retiring today. They still have 23 years to go before they make it to retirement. So they don't need $4,900, they're gonna need $9,800 in the future because of inflation, okay? And so for them to be on track to do that, they were gonna have to reach their financial independence number. This is very, very important for people to know this. Most people have no clue. And part of our program, we're gonna show families what their financial independence number is. And for them, that basically means how much money do they need to have saved, that if they reach that number, that they're gonna be able to make it to have retirement, enjoy retirement for the rest of their life, basically, okay? And so for this family, their number was $1.3 million. If they could accumulate that, then they were gonna basically make $9,800 every single month for the rest of their life. Now, when we show that number to families, most of the times the way they react is they think, man, wow, that seems like a lot of money. You know, I don't know that we make that much less how are we gonna save that? And so this is where we start teaching families about how money works, okay? And we teach them about investing with things like mutual funds. Are you guys familiar at all with like investing, mutual funds, stuff like that? Do you have a pretty good background on any of that kind of stuff?
Kind of, but not really.
Kind of, not really? Okay. And you're probably like most. You probably heard of things like mutual funds. You know they're good, but how do they really work, right? That's our experience with most families we sit with. Well, this is what we tell families that they should know, that are important to know about that. Number one is that investing in a mutual fund is the safest form of investment you can make in America, really, because of their diversification. It's very safe to invest in a mutual fund. That's why most retirement plans to work are invested in mutual funds. Number one. Number two, to get like a higher rate of return, a good return on your money, they typically are going to outperform virtually anything else that's offered to the middle class. So it's a great way to get the best rate of return on your investment, number two. And then thirdly, to start a mutual fund, if a family says, oh yeah, that sounds good and I'd like to do one, the other part is where do they go do it? So if you go to a bank or you go to an investment company, usually they have minimums to start. Some as little as $1,000, some as much as $5,000 and $10,000 minimums to get their better rated funds. With us at Primerica, we can start a family in those exact same funds for as little as $25 a month. Okay, and we get very passionate about that for them. Okay, then we'll show them what they need to be saving on a monthly basis to be on track for retirement to hit their goals. Okay, any questions on that? No? Okay. The next part of our program that we'll show for the family has to do with the debt program. Okay, and again, because of our market, the middle income segment, we tend to face more debt than typically like the wealthy do. And so we have solutions to help address those issues. For example, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a summary for them. We're going to summarize all the debt items, if any, that they currently have. Like, for example, do they have a car, credit cards, house, anything like that? We'll show all the current balances on everything for them. Then the interest rates, because each item is going to have an interest rate. And then the weighted average, what's the true cost of their debt that they're going to pay during their lifetime? The minimum required payments that the companies ask for, and then any additional payment if they send anything extra. However, today it's pretty common that families only send the minimums today, right? Based off the way that they're sending their payments every month, we're actually able to show them the month and year that they're going to pay every single item off, and how much interest they're going to pay per item. So for example, this family here, they were going to pay this plus this in that time period there. All right. And so also after we summarize it, we can then determine their debt to income ratio, which this basically means is that for every dollar they make, what percentage of that dollar goes here to debt first. And the higher we see this ratio, the higher you see things like stress, blood pressure, health issues are indirectly related to money. In fact, divorce, the number one cause of divorce today is money problems. All right? And so we look at solutions. How can we lower that for the family? All right? And so for these guys, we did have a solution for them, and let me show you kind of the result of the solution. This column right here shows what they were currently doing right now, and if they followed our program, what it would look like. Okay, so for example, if their current program, they were going to pay everything off November 2031, he was going to be 62 years old. If they followed our program, they were going to get out July 2021, where he was now 51. They were going to pay $97,000 in interest. We dropped them now to 54. It was going to take them 17 years to pay everything off, now 7. 10 years, 4 months sooner. And look at this. The amount of money they were sending every month to all their debt right now, before we even got there, was $28.82, including their house. With us was basically the same, $28.82. Actually, we had added an additional $15 to it. By doing that, to pay all of that off. So we showed it to them. They go, "Wow, that sounds great, but what's the catch? How does this work?" Okay, well, this is where we implement our program. It's called a debt stacking program. A lot of people that I've sat with, they've tried at some point to try to pay things off faster, but it just seems like it's a mountain that they can't get over. And so our program will actually take all of the family's debts, organize it, and show them what's the best way mathematically to pay everything off as fast as possible. Okay. For example, here's how it worked for this family. They had a MasterCard, so it identified that as the first item to pay off. Once they paid off the MasterCard, they were paying $303 a month for that. So once they paid it off, it freed up $303. Well, for most families, when they free up money, what they typically do when they get freed up money is they go spend it. But now, because they had a plan, we told them, look, don't do that. Take that amount of money and apply it to the next item on your stack. And so, for example, their Visa payment, which was $353 a month, now they started sending them the extra $303. By doing that, they could send them $656. They were able to pay them off the very next month, February. Now $656 is freed up. They can now apply that to their car payment, which was $551 a month, but now they have $656 extra, so they can now send them $1207 every month, and the very next month they're able to pay them off. The $1207 that's freed up, now they can add that to the Discover card, which the minimum payment was $120, so now they can send them $1327. They paid them off the following April. $1327 freed up, they can add that to Sears. $1402 paid them off in May. They could add that now to Rooms to Go, which is a timeshare they had, right? So the $180 payment, now out of $1402, they paid them off in July. So basically, in the same year, they were able to pay off all of these items following the stack program. Now, freed up $1582, they can now add that to their house payment, which was $1,300 a month. So now they could send all of their debt to the house payment, and it was able to knock it out in July 2021, saved them $29,000 in interest just on the house alone. Okay, pretty awesome. Now, what it also showed, because we say don't stop there, because they were still fairly young. At this point right here, when they paid everything off, now the $2882 is freed up. Right? If they were to say, okay, instead of making more debt, why don't we save that money? If they were to save that till the age 67, they'd have $1.1 million. Basically, almost fully fund their retirement just by paying off the debt and saving that money till they make it to retirement. Very powerful part of our program, okay? Then what we'll do, one of the last parts of our program is the life insurance part of the program, or we call this income protection. What you're going to find with us is that we don't really have a high regard for the life insurance industry as a whole. Here's why. We believe they've taken a real need and they've twisted it, and it's sold very deceptively today to the middle income segment. When we find families that have life insurance programs already, and we sit down with them, we find that they're either overinsured or underinsured or paying way too much for the wrong type of coverage. Okay? And we don't agree with the way it's marketed. Typically, they'll sit with the family and they'll ask them, how much coverage would you like? The family will say, I don't know, 100,000, 150,000, because it sounds like a lot of money. Or they'll ask them, how much can you afford? And then they give them an amount. We don't agree with either of those. What our program does, it bases it off of a needs basis. Okay? So for example, we'll ask them a series of questions. Based off how they respond to these questions, it tells us the exact amount they would need, if any, based off how they respond. For example, we ask them, if something happened to either of them, would they want to see a program pay for their house so that the family could keep it? If something happened to them, would they want to pay off any of the consumer debt so the family's not left with it? Would they like to pay for college for the kids? Right? Funeral coverage, obviously we always recommend that. But the big one is what we call survivor income, or income replacement. Meaning this, that if something happened to the husband, we're proposing to pay off the house, the debt, college, everything paid for, but now his income is gone. So is there any amount of money that his wife would still need If so, how much and for how long? And vice versa. If something happened to the wife, we're taking care of all those items. But now her income is gone. Is there any amount of money that the husband would need on a monthly basis? If so, how much and for how long? And based off how they respond to that, that's how we're able to pinpoint the exact amount that they would need, if any. Okay? And then lastly, this is what we call the theory of decreasing responsibility. Really, it's the heart of what financial planning was supposed to be based off of. Okay? What I'm going to show you right now is really a financial planning philosophy and how life insurance is supposed to work in your game plan here. It is, however, the opposite of what the life insurance industry would like for you to do, and I'll explain why. If you look at this right now, this is kind of like a timeline, Asa. This timeline basically means this, that in the early years, this bar represents your coverage program, okay? This bar represents your savings. So for you guys, or for a family, in the early years, the amount of coverage that they need is typically going to be higher. Because in the early years, their liabilities are higher. For example, like I know you guys have two kids. Is it just the two, or do you guys have another one? Just the two? Okay. She said you have another one. All right. Two that he knows about. Got it. Okay. The kids are still young. So if something were to happen to the family while the kids are young, they would need more money to take care of them for a longer period of time if they're still in the house, right? If something were to happen to you, to happen to the family, the mortgage, they owe more in their first year that they bought it, right, than they do in the 30th year. So the amount of coverage that a family needs is going to start to decrease. That is the theory of decreasing responsibility. At the same time, your savings for a family is typically smaller at the beginning. But through time, if they practice the principles we teach and they invest, through time those investments will grow. And at this point, where the lines intersect is where you are now what we call self-insured. Meaning that if the event that something happened to either of the family members or the breadwinners, and they needed $100,000 to take care of them, they have that money sitting in their investments. And they're no longer dependent on a life insurance program. And we're one of the only companies in America that during this period here, that will recommend a family to do like a term coverage program because it's far less expensive. But after they become self-insured, they no longer need the life insurance and they can now stop paying on it. Okay? But if you think about that, what the life insurance industry though would rather you do. They'd rather you do a variation of like a whole life program where you pay for insurance your whole life instead of just the period that you need it. But if you think about that, who really wins the most if you pay for insurance your whole life? You know, they do. And that's why they have the nice marble offices and all that kind of stuff, because they make a lot of money on people forever, right? And so, but does that make sense to you guys there? Any questions on that part there? Okay, all right. And then what we'll do here is we basically do a summary for the family at the end, and we'll show them everything that they're currently doing right now to be on track with everything, and then goals that they have this is what they're doing right now, and then goals to be on track with everything, and then the third column kind of represents what they can actually afford to implement based off their budget, because everybody has different budgets and stuff like that, right? Now, that's our financial needs analysis that we do. Obviously, you can see how a family could benefit from a program like this. In your situation, did you guys see anything that was interesting to you guys, or anything that kind of stood out to you guys, or maybe had some questions about?
Yeah, definitely the retirement part.
The retirement part there, okay. That's one of our most popular areas of our program that we do. Well, here's what we can do. I can get some quick information from you, and we can put a retirement assessment together for you. We'll focus primarily on that. We'll actually look at all the areas, but we'll focus primarily on the retirement part, and then we'll see if we can offer some solutions for you on that. And by the way, this is going to help Mari out for her training as well, and so we're going to put her to work too, and to do that, and we can see if we can offer you some solutions. Okay, does that sound okay?
Yeah, that's
okay. All right. So pause right there. That is the first.